Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, final mission. No, not our final mission. It's young Wesley's final mission. Spoiler alert. He'll be back. You'll see him. Final mission on It's All Been Checked Before. Hey, don't make this our final mission. Support us at Patreon. Patreon.com/IBD. That's the place to do it. You can do it so affordably and get so much bang for your buck. I can say that. It's still okay to say that. Just like it's okay to check out its final mission on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to It's All Been Shrek Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And the non-bee killing Keith.
And Jimmy-Jerome. Keith always does that. And there's no way for me to edit that out, but nobody will understand what you're talking about because we're not going to leave the story of Steven murdering bees for fun at the beginning.
Well, you've just explained it, so.
Well, I felt like I had to. So we're here to talk about Final Mission, and not the bees' final mission.
No.
Somebody else's final mission. First impressions.
A couple of people's final mission. Keith?
Couple, yeah, that's true.
My first impression. Wow. My first thought was it was a jokingly misleading title because it's not even like the final mission of the series or of the season.
But it is the final mission of a main character.
Right. And he Picard got the titular line in like the cold open. So
yeah, I noticed that. He said it.
That was, I think, the best part about the episode. I don't know. There were moments. We'll get there. I mean, it was like a nice parabolic thing, a revert. What do you call the one where you start off kind of high and dip and then come back up? I don't know.
Parabola? Is that a parabola? I guess it
was. I wasn't sure if they have to go in the the other direction or not. Not to look.
It was a reverse bell curve, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, you could almost talk me into that. It made me think of something, another sports term I'll introduce, which is replacement player level, which is it generally started with baseball, but applies to other sports too. Actually, I think I first read it about basketball, which is so your player, your starting player gets hurt, you have to replace him with somebody. Replacement level is like a floor. Like this guy will be the bare minimum of okay to replace this other guy, which isn't to say he's the worst, because the worst is to be below replacement level. And if you're well above replacement level, you're a superstar. I would say this episode was just above replacement level. There are aspects of it I liked. I thought there were relationship moments that were good, that were really nice. And I think the bell curves is a good part of that, big part of that. The overall episode of it, maybe not great, but I liked it. Yeah. I'll come all the way back around to say I ended up.
I can say that between this episode and the next one, I predict the episode annoyances are going to be very easy to pick, and I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree all that much with you. I thought there were some really nice moments in this episode, but overall, it wasn't one of my favorite episodes by any stretch. Yeah. So we'll start here of the opening scene where Picard tells Wesley he's going to the academy in a very roundabout way that I didn't think was clear at all. But he's like, oh, you can't do that if you're going to the academy or something. And I'm like, yep. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that he's going now. How did he make that leap?
Right.
Well, I think that he had given up on the idea of going at all for quite a while. Like, what was didn't they establish the period at some point that he would have to wait until he was eligible, or there was another opening or something like that? And I think it was unclear whether he was going to be able to even take the exam again, right? Something like that.
Well, I think they had said he didn't. I don't think he had to take the exam again because he was already accepted, but he missed the spot because he was caught on a mission and couldn't make it back to Earth on time. Where now they're like, spot opened up mid-year, go for it, which feels a little odd to me. I feel like, at least in the novels, they established that lots of cadets wash out of the academy in the first year, which makes sense. And I wouldn't think they'd try to replace them as fast as they wash out. So that whole thing felt very hokey to me. But still, it was nice that Picard was like having fun with him, teasing him on the bridge and saying, hey, before you go, I want to take another little mission with you. That was nice.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it. Yeah, as far as how it came about and all that, the obviousness of it. It's kind of it cuts both ways, because I like the idea, and I'm jumping ahead just a little bit. Picard's like, why don't you come with me on this mission or whatever?
Final mission.
Another mediation mission. Yeah. but at the same time, it's like, okay, this feels a little bit like, right on the nose. But that said, I still enjoyed that moment, the bridge moment.
I did notice right away that they had already replaced Wesley at his station on the bridge, which we have people sit there routinely when he's up. But this woman, Ensign Tess Allenby, played by Mary Conert, who's best known for this part, as well as Mr. Baseball, Hunter, and Nightmare Classics.
Yeah.
She's only in 3 episodes of Next Gen, 1 uncredited. And one of them is the very next episode where she actually has lines. I don't think she's spoken this one. We'll talk about next week where she has lines, and then she's in one of the final season episodes for some random reason.
I didn't notice her.
Or not final season, sorry, the end of season 6. Yeah, the blonde.
I'm usually distracted enough anyway, for some reason or another, not quite looking at every little detail on the screen. Although, well, that's going to play into something else that's coming up next. But I wanted to note something that I didn't write down, which is it started off with Wesley. It felt like he was a little bit out of character to me. Well, it started the tone of the things that were going to bother me. I think this is going to be my highest score for him ever, honestly. Just about the way that he was so, oh my God, no, man, but I have to explain to you. I'm just telling you, that whole exchange. It was pitched, for comedy to some extent, but it just didn't feel like it fit for either of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this is skipping ahead as well, but there were some times where Wesley felt like he was acting completely out of character, especially the way he's just a brat to that alien shuttle captain at every turn.
Yeah.
When they first crash, it does not feel like somebody who deserves to be at the academy or the Starfleet officer.
His snide crack on the shuttle, which in hindsight, I guess he was right. It was a hunk of junk, but
sure.
And then, but still,
it was so weird.
You don't have to say that.
It was like that the broccoli thing, the red broccoli.
Yeah.
It was very much that same tone out of nowhere. It doesn't seem like, why would Wesley be picking on somebody?
No, I mean, why do you have to berate somebody for being a shuttle captain? Like, just that first comment about captain. Oh, she's captain of that. And Picard's like, dude,
jerk.
Cool it.
Yeah. Then he's like, you listen to Captain Picard when he says something. He's a great man. I'm like, come on, buddy. You're almost out. And no, you had to.
That shuttle, speaking of the alien shuttle, I was very confused about the layout, and I want to see a blueprint. At first, I was like, where's Picard? Oh, that's got to be 2 rooms. Is there room for 2 rooms? And apparently they built a whole second room, I'm assuming, just so Patrick Stewart didn't have to be in that one scene they were filming in the cockpit.
It's funny you should mention that, actually.
You can see through it. But then,
if you look at my screen,
it's background that you'll see if you're a Patreon donor.
But then, you see the captain bracing himself with his legs spread, like, But
then also there was a weird escape hatch in the top for no reason I could think of that seemed to be like right where the door from the 2 rooms would be between the 2 rooms. So I don't know. I feel like the structure of the shuttle didn't make sense. I want to see a blueprint.
It was an old shuttle, and I liked the interior because it had that great dingy kind of cramped kind of old but new technology for us kind of feel, which, as I've said before, I love from Star Wars and 70s sci-fi and this. So I love that part of it. When it actually starts moving and is among those planets, that looked really bad effects wise. But I can't remember if this is in response to the snide crack on the shuttle or him being a captain, but he mentions that he'd logged 10,000 hours on the shuttle. So Malcolm Gladstone would say that's why he's going to be a good captain. He's going to be a good shuttle guy, but that didn't.
But also, it probably doesn't smell very good in there.
No, that's for sure.
His dirty gym socks are right next to it. I thought when they were in space, I think it was right as the shuttle was like going down, there was some very Star Wars-like music.
Yeah,
I had several music notes this week where it got annoying and noticeable.
My only note on the music was this music lets you know that this could indeed be the final mission.
Yeah.
They're really like, we're gone. This is it.
I did love the touch as Picard goes to slide into the pilot seat where he grabs up top to lower himself in and the bar breaks off in his hand.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah. And was agreeing to go ahead and take that shuttle part of the mediation? Like, we don't want to make these guys upset?
I guess so.
I mean, why not just take an Enterprise shuttle?
Yeah.
And I mean, because my next good note is really poor planning with the shuttle. Once again, and I love the shuttles, and I feel like we see them more in TNG, and they have successful runs, unlike the Galileo 7, Decker driving one into the Doomsday Machine. But yeah, this one was definitely, you know what, maybe you should have taken a different shuttle. Maybe for this important meeting, maybe you don't take the bucket of bolts. Maybe you say to the guy, hey, how about we do a little work on this, and we'll take the Copernicus or whatever the heck the next shuttle name is.
Absolutely.
There's a Seinfeld joke and a planes, trains, and automobiles thing in there too, probably somewhere. You know, Enterprise being out of shuttles, they know how to take the reservations, but not how to keep them.
There was some good stuff in this episode of Riker being in command. After Best of Both Worlds, it really feels like he's much more comfortable in running the ship. And I feel like we can afford to let Picard go on these little things because we've got a backup captain now, as opposed to what he was before, which was more supportive.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that I hadn't thought of before, in the sense that the subject always had been coming up a lot in the past about why didn't Riker move on? Why wouldn't he need to go somewhere else? But if you think about a ship like the Enterprise and kinds of things they have to encounter, it would make sense to have a backup captain level number one, wouldn't it? I mean,
yes. I mean, I don't think we ever really see that in other ships, but
right. But I mean, I'm saying this seems especially necessary for these kinds of missions. So.
Sure. I mean, Picard goes on diplomatic stuff all the time. So, though, when they get on the planet and they've got their phasers out as they're getting ready to trek through the desert, didn't those look like original series phasers, just with the little pieces added on?
Yep.
It even still had the little phaser in the big phaser holster.
Yeah, they looked a little different. And that must have been what I was seeing. Yeah.
I think they added some accoutrement to it to make it look alien, but it was essentially just a TOS phaser.
So I just want to make another comment about the music, because it's like they handed off to the composer. They'd all been sort of like furloughed for most of the season, and it was like, here you go. We're going to call this episode Final Mission. Just go ahead and go for it. And he just went, oh my God, let's go. And just ran to the orchestra. And this is, okay, guys, this is Final Mission. This is just going to be.
Maybe it's called Final Mission because after the composer turned into his score, they called him up and said, hey, dude, this was your final mission right for the show.
Wow.
So, fashion.
I got a lot of, two fashion notes. I thought I might be thinking of a different week where I have more fashion. I like Picard and Wesley's headdresses.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
I have one long one actually from earlier, which we kind of skipped past because of, so what they took off in the shuttle when they had the encounter with aliens that called on the view screen. So Chairman Sanji.
Yes.
And I actually had to pause and just write this down because she had a top knot, a diagonal knot, a side braid, one loose tail on the same side, nostrils sort of connected the nose kind of flattened and connected the chin with the two skin pieces, and like calcifications along it, and that like Klingon sash almost with like maybe half a necklace.
I wrote down. I thought it was a really interesting look to that alien. Still humanoidish, but nonetheless. And then all I could think about was, how do they kiss?
Yeah, Sanji.
That's all I could think about.
Sanji was played by Kim Hamilton, who's a working actress with 80-some credits, but nothing super stand out. Yeah. She was in Guiding Light, Body and Soul, Checkmate, Ben Casey. Back to the headdresses. Yeah. Those were clearly improvised headresses with trash from the shuttle, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I thought they looked cool. They reminded me of, I'm thinking Love Blindness, I think, when he would use his blanket to turn into a shepherd. They reminded me of that. I also like their tans. I'm going to call them tans, even though it's really just sunburn, I guess. Sure. But I thought that was a cool touch. Deviate just for a second from fashion. Did anyone do the math as soon as they said, well, it's 55 degrees Celsius?
I did not. I didn't catch that.
Like, but that's really hot, isn't it?
I was like, oh, that's super warm. And my other fashion note takes us back. Oh, I like Wesley's hair. I don't know if it was the planet or something else, but it looked a little different. I don't know if it was all the sun and sweat or whatever in the sand.
55 Celsius is 131 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
What are desert temperatures usually? I mean,
in this country, like 100.
Yeah. I think
105.
Yeah, I think that'd be like a Death Valley record. And then
and yet the captain, well, I guess we haven't talked about him. Durgo, played by Nick Tate, who's best known for Space 1999, Killer Elite, The Blacklist, and Hook. He's got 118 credits. And he's still has credits from 2019, so recently. But yeah, he looked familiar, but I don't think I know him. He does do an episode of DS9 later as a different character, obviously, because we'll talk about that at the end. But it was his final mission.
Could have been a dream sequence.
That's what I meant. It was.
I mean, this character was not important enough for a return. But yeah, he had the secret water. I thought it was secret water, but it was a flask. And I don't know what his alien physiology is, but you're trekking through 131 degrees and drinking alcohol, you probably would have dropped dead.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it was water when he first pulled it out. I was thinking,
I thought it was.
Maybe not. I guess I assumed it was water.
The way he pulled it out made me think it was alcohol, but also he still left the door open for, maybe this guy's hoarding water.
I just thought he didn't want to share.
And then later when he said it was for medicinal purposes, I just wrote, yeah, it is. Even if it's 135 degrees. But you know what? Warm vodka in the desert, probably would not be my favorite thing.
Well, I think it was only 131, so he probably should have been okay.
Yeah.
Somewhere in those
and yet they weren't sweaty at all, but I guess it's a dry heat that just evaporates.
Oh, right.
Comes out.
Even just in Vegas, it was really interesting doing. I don't know if you've ever been there. Well, I know Steven has, obviously.
Yeah,
but
I have.
Yeah, just I miss the feeling of that sometimes. Just being really hot, but at the same time not. But it's just kind of.
Yeah. It's a dry heat to a point, and then I was there once when it was 105, and it didn't matter. It was terrible. Well, sitting by the pool was terrible. Well, it wasn't terrible because then you just got in the pool, and you were in Vegas. But the heat was pretty impressive, but it wasn't as dry. Yeah, unless his physiology is different and alcohol affects him differently. But he had a good bit in there, so
yeah,
a good bit of it.
So after Wesley's annoying a bunch, they make it to the cave, and they're like, "Oh, this was either carved by water or a volcano," and I'm like, "Really? You see those perfectly carved stone steps? Are you sure it was water or a volcano and not a life form?"
Or like that door you walked through that looked like didn't look naturally made.
It did not look like a natural cave at all. They were trying to play it off as a natural cave. Yeah. In fact, I think it looked to me like they might have reused it from another episode.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the look of it as a viewer, but don't try to tell me this just happened on accident.
I was willing to buy that. It may have been volcanic in origin, but it seemed odd to me that Picard didn't also note the steps as like volcanic and or man-made or something, because I thought that was going to be the next word out of his mouth, and it was what? Okay, well,
lava monsters typically carve stone steps as they pour out of the volcano.
If only we had the rock monster from Savage Curtain here to tell us how it works.
There's an interesting scene where Troy talks to Crusher in sickbay. I mean, it's nice to see their friendship, but I didn't particularly care for the way Beverly was acting.
I mean, like pretending to play it off, or?
I mean, she's a professional, and it felt like in this episode she was being a little less than professional. Similarly to Troy next week, as we'll talk about. I felt like they were being a bit out of character. I thought she was a little bit... Like, yeah, she was silent when Riker made the original decisions, but then I just felt like she was a little more mother and a little less officer here, and I feel like she's better than that.
I must have missed something. What can you be like? What did she do?
I mean, I've got a note about her at the end when she finds them that we'll talk about, but I just thought the scene between her and Troy came off kind of weird and false.
Yeah, I agree, because, I mean, we've seen her get worried about him or not worried about him before, and this one just didn't ring true.
Right.
Justice, of course, she's worried about him. He's an innocent man on a planet with a bunch of young blonde women.
He's much younger than too, though.
Yeah, he's a kid with no experience. Now he's an ensign.
Yeah. My other fashion note. For whatever reason, and apologies to the
Crusher?
Gates McFadden.
Oh.
Yeah. That uniform was just ill-fitting this week. I don't know what the deal was. It just looked very ill-fitting, and that's not a comment on her. That's more a comment on just whatever. I don't know if her regular uniform was destroyed in a fire and had to make do. But anyway.
I know she was pregnant at some point during the run of the series. I wonder if maybe that was it and she hadn't been refitted yet.
So she, could be.
Well, all right. So, I mean, I'm still just kind of.
Yeah, she was pregnant in the 4th season of TNG. So that might have been what you were seeing.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Again,
all I remember is that about that exchange was that Troy was asking her if she was okay, what's going on, how do you feel? And she was like, I'm fine, nothing. And that was it. I mean, what else happened?
I mean, yeah, it was more just the tone of how she spoke rather than, in my opinion. I didn't write additional notes, so now my brain's a little bit like, I thought that was the details.
She said everything was fine, just like your wife tells you everything fine when it is in fact
passive aggressive.
Fine. Yeah. I thought it was very much that way. I'll back up a little bit real quick. That other ship that the Enterprise is messing with was a garbage scow. Did you guys notice that? So I think Quark and TNG and Star Trek are in the same universe. It's finally been established. It's Quark ship.
One thing I didn't write down, but occurred to me at the time that you reminded me of was Geordi exercising caution, perhaps thinking of the Pac-Leds. Mm-hmm. But that's a little bit of a stretch. But I did like that bit where there was some of that consideration going on. Riker hearing them out. That little bit of let's try this. But no, the practical considerations that seemed reasonable. So
they find water in the cave, but it's behind a force field. And then, of course, before they can do anything, Wesley's almost killed, but Picard instead pushes him out of the way, and instead of continuing with Wesley, stands there and looks up while the rocks bury him.
Right.
They're hypnotic,
which does not feel like how Picard would act there.
Seemed like they could have done better with that.
I think if they wanted to injure Picard and not Wesley, you could have Picard tackle him and cover him.
Right.
And that would have worked just as well.
Or set it up so it's cut that he pushes him, boom, he's hit by rocks, not boom, looks up, beat. Was
right.
Like Picard
was almost the Austin Powers of
no, they that's what I was going to say. The part that was missing was he needed that the comedy yell there. He looking him, whoa,
Yeah, Picard wouldn't, and you could argue Picard was like frozen. What do I do? But that wouldn't. That's how it would be out of character too. So.
Right, especially because he acted so quick to push Wesley out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then I think it's Wesley describes. He's like, his right leg is broken, and he has a fracture in his right arm. You know what? His right leg is broken, and his right arm is broken. Isn't that the same thing?
I don't know.
A fracture is more precise than a break. I mean,
I guess it could have been a stress fracture or a hairline fracture rather than broken.
Wesley
I don't know why he's being willy-nilly with his diagnosis. But
Wesley nursing Picard, it's a good thing Wes is over 18 by now, because there were some slash fiction scenes written about this. Oh my God.
Didn't even cross my mind.
There were it was very easy to take romantic overtones from them in this episode.
Huh.
Way too easy.
I guess I needed Marianne to watch it with me to gauge that. I just didn't catch it.
I mean, it still feels wrong, given the age difference, but at least he's not 16 anymore. Picard talks about selfishly bringing Wesley along, which, again, more romance, because he wanted to spend time with him. And I feel like the injury was artificially put in here because the writers of this episode were just like, we need a way for Picard to tell Wesley how he really feels about him in Wesley's final episode. So let's make this artificial injury where he might be dying so that they can express everything. It just felt so forced and calculated. And the whole making him proud thing, and he was always proud. It's just, I mean, I feel like that is their relationship. We know that's the relationship. We don't need it spelled out so explicitly through this.
All right, I partially disagree. I think we both partially disagree to some extent. And this is where it started making up ground for me, honestly. And I think it was more about the delivery. And it took me, it was pulling me in enough where I didn't really think about the cynical angle of it. Because I know in the next episode, since we keep doing that, I started considering cynically considering the framework or the construct that they were doing there. I'm not going to disagree with you there. I mean, that is contrived if you look at it that way, but I didn't feel it at the time, I guess.
Yeah, I this goes back to where you started, Jimmy, which is beginning of the episode, which I guess we all did, which is I really like this scene, but this episode doesn't deserve it, which is that kind of what you're saying here, which is it getting there is forced. I still like the scene. I wish it was in a better episode.
I thought the dialogue was a bit clumsy in the scene.
Yeah,
I like the emotion of the scene. I thought the dialogue was clunky.
The delivery sold it for me, I guess. It didn't feel as forced as the other things where Wesley was like going, this is the captain. How dare you? Or you still think he's unfit? That was like where I was like, Wesley's at score 5 and climbing. I was saying to myself because it was just like that, helping him up and like, just. Did
Wesley feel bad at all? He was so mean to that guy, and then he got him killed.
See,
he didn't get him killed, but he didn't help.
I mean, that guy.
Yeah,
the fact
there
was never any resolution that it was his final mission and that he died and everything. Like it was just like, oh, he's in that really cool webby looking clear bubble thing. I thought that design of that was neat.
I did too. I thought that was one of the positive things was because I thought
there was no
the web or whatever.
There was no discussion of if that killed him or if they could free him or anything. It was just like, oh, we're going home.
Yep.
What about him?
There were just lots of little neat pieces to things, I guess. That was one of those elements. So the puzzle of what was going on, whether or not it was adequately explained, I'm not sure. But the effects, the idea of it, I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
I did not get into the puzzle of what was going on at all. I thought it was just contrived so they could do this other stuff. I will say the other part of Wesley and Picard's conversation, the part I did kind of like, was Picard telling him he envied him because he was at the beginning of his career, and also giving him the advice about Boothby, the wisest man he's ever known, the gardener, who we were aware of, Boothby, by this
Really?
point. I think we've seen him, haven't we? I know we've talked about him.
Was he at the test?
Pretty sure we saw him.
Oh, yeah.
No, not the test at Starfleet Academy. Hang on, I'm looking him up. I'm pretty sure we saw him. Ray Walston plays him.
Oh, I don't know if we have seen Ray Walston.
No, you're right. He first played the role in a 5th season episode of Next Gen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, I'm with you, Jimmy. I thought that scene was better. I loved that sentiment was great. And that was definitely a better moment than the One Judy Proud moment. And it's something, at my advanced age, I could definitely relate to, when, dealing with future theater artists, future writers that are like, wow, you're in high school and you're writing this and I can't write anything this good. And you're just going to get to go from here. So it's different. The relationship is different because I just know them for a brief time. And I'm like, man, but envy is correct. Jealousy might even be correct too. Because it's like,
I'm looking and Boothby is not mentioned in Star Trek before this point. So maybe I was talking about a novel or something with you guys and mentioned him. I don't know.
To go back to the One You'd Be Proud scene, I thought it was really good. One other thing that fought against it was the music. That was one of the scenes where the music was absolutely dreadful.
Yep. And only added to the romance.
Yeah. And it's funny that we've talked, TOS, those stingers some of those stingers are amazing, but and I can't remember what episode kind of started this, but I know they had a new person come on, and I hate to pile on him, but yeah, not even, you know what? I'll give you a stinger while we're cutting a commercial. You can go as over the top as you want, but in the middle of a scene, music shouldn't tell you, here's what you have to feel here. It should supplement your feelings, I guess, for like a minute. Not that I'm the musician here by any means, but yeah, it worked despite that.
I noted the music distracting 3 times in the episode, and this was the 2nd time. Absolutely. I also was getting really annoyed with the Enterprise side mission of how it was taking them so long to handle. So I got into the weeds a little bit with the asteroid belt because I was trying to think, like, how big is an asteroid belt? Can't they just direct it over the asteroid belt? Do they have to fly it through the asteroid belt? I don't quite understand. But when I looked up asteroid belts in terms of like how wide they are and how big they are, like our own asteroid belt in our system, it's as wide as like the distance between the Earth and the Sun. It's super wide.
Yeah.
However, if you're standing on any asteroid in our asteroid belt and you look all around, you're not going to be able to see the next nearest asteroid. So they're not that close.
Yeah.
So if it was anything like our asteroid belt, they should be able to just send it on a course and send it through.
I actually recently read something about that because I read a story, an Empire Strikes Back story, set in when they go through the asteroid belt. And yeah, everyone was saying the same thing. Like, that's not the way it works. But their workaround was, well, the planet just blew up, but it must not have been, not Alderaan, but some other planet.
It's still too dense.
It was
It's
fresh.
expanding.
So it was that dense. Yeah. But yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
One of the things I noted about the scene, I got excited because they at least did some continuity and mentioned the other episode where they were taking the shuttle trip.
Yes, I liked that.
I like that.
Yeah.
So
it's a good callback.
So the thing about Durgo at that point, whether or not Wesley showed enough remorse for what had happened, I kind of felt like the audience was supposed to be sort of like we're on the same place that he was at that point. Durgo had made such a nuisance of himself that he was practically begging to be killed by whatever he was about to do.
Yeah.
And I put like that was like the best case scenario of that experiment that he forced Wesley to participate in, essentially.
Yeah.
Do we think like he was so ineffective and annoying and everything that, like, Durgo, I mean, like, was his purpose to sabotage the mission, or was he just
do you mean like
good at his job?
Do you mean like writing wise, or do you think that like the actual character was trying to sabotage them in some way?
The actual character, like,
interesting.
Because I mean, obviously, it's not explicit that that's what was going on. It's more explicit that he was just not good at what he did, and captain must have been in quotation marks. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Once he's gone, it's like, okay, now the adults in the room can handle it.
When Wesley goes to enact his plan, which hero Wesley one more time, yay! Which, though, you kind of want that in his final episode. But Picard's no longer in the room where the water was, but he was in the room where the water was. So Wesley moved him in his very frail condition into another room.
What? I didn't. There were separate
Wesley,
rooms.
like, has that final conversation with Picard, and then he goes to shoot the water column, and he actually goes through like a doorway into another room to shoot the water column.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I think he moved Picard, but
what is the thing that Wesley puts the water in?
His hand?
Well, eventually he does, but at first he has like a bunch of it, and I thought he was just going to kind of waterboard him just to get some relief for him. And then he started taking it from his hand, which probably makes more sense medically to, like, all right, I'm not gonna pour a bunch of this in your mouth. But
well, I think you used like a sponge. I guess that wasn't the first aid kit. So instead you did the romantic Civil War nurse thing.
Right.
So, Wesley's hero moment of shooting the lasers, the other part where I wrote the music, gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
The most contrived thing, or at least to me, which it seems a little odd, compared to everything else was going on, but they had like a lot of faith that the water was going to be drinkable to begin with, right? I mean, and it turned out to be drinkable. And then also they cut the scene in such a way where, maybe I looked away. I don't know where they made it. They suggested that drinking the water helped him survive long enough to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much time elapsed or if it really made that much of a difference.
I mean, I think the dehydration was exacerbating their injuries and stuff.
Yeah.
So that made sense to me. But you're on to something, Keith, because I have 2 alternate episodes, and one of them was they get to the water, but it's poison.
That would have been like just, yeah.
I mean, you could get rid of the stupid Captain Durgo in this episode, and then you'd have time to make the poison water like the mid-episode puzzle that has to be solved. That would be a better episode.
Yep.
Crusher gets the rescue party gets there. And look, I get Crusher's going to value her son over Picard, but Picard is critically injured and Wesley's fine, and she's fawning over Wesley and completely ignoring Picard as they wheel him out. That felt weird. Like, once she confirms Wesley's fine, you think she'd fuss over Picard.
Well, and he's going to Starfleet Academy. It's not like she's never going to see him again.
Right.
I mean,
she left him for a whole year on the Enterprise.
Right. Right.
That was my other big complaint in this episode is then you have Picard telling Wesley goodbye as he's being carried out of the caves. And that's where the credits go, as you still see him like coming out of the cave. That felt so weird and artificial. Like Picard, he's gonna come visit Picard in sickbay before he leaves. This wasn't the last second they were gonna see each other. I think they said they had like 5 days or 6 days left. And what I think they should have done is cut some of the Enterprise looking for them, which was completely unnecessary. Like, oh, they've already searched this, but let's search this. We didn't need that. And then you could have Wesley have a goodbye scene with the ensemble and 10 forward instead of only getting to say goodbye to Picard.
Huh.
That felt unsatisfying to me, that if this is his character's final episode, you need to let them say goodbye to all these characters, because he has bonds with Riker and Data and Geordi, and we don't see any of the rest of them say goodbye to
that. Is what was that didn't occur to me, like in that detail, but that's what it. I think that's what it is. That's what was probably missing.
They all got to say goodbye to Yar, but they don't all get to say goodbye to Wesley.
And that was my second alternate episode. Is this felt very much obviously this was a Wesley centric episode. By the end of it, it felt like almost a backdoor pilot for Wesley's spinoff where he goes to the academy. Like it felt like, oh, I'm leaving this guy behind, now follow me on my journey, which we get to do for an episode down the line, but not.
I feel like you just dropped like a future series already. Like, Paramount Plus is probably going to just jump on that at some point.
They have to recast. Will Wheaton's a little old to play that.
Well, now. No, they probably throw him in as a teacher or something, or maybe even playing his father.
Timothy Chalamet.
Visions, something.
There you go. Timothy Chalamet. That's perfect. So Will Wheaton as Wesley Crusher, will be in 4 more episodes. This episode aired in the fall of 1990. He's got 1 episode each for 91, 92, 93, 94.
I can't believe we're only in 1990.
I'm sorry?
I can't believe we're only in 1990. We're just now getting there.
Late 1990.
So basically, he appears later this season once, and then once each for the last 3 seasons. And I know that at least one of the episodes coming up is like a Wesley-centric episode at the Academy. So we will get to see a glimpse of that, but we won't get to see it regularly. Too bad. I liked Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
I was sad. I almost would have rather, not really because I love Patrick Stewart as Picard, but I almost would have rather this be Picard's final mission instead of Wesley's final mission. Except they just let Picard survive the Borg, so they weren't going to pull him in a cage.
Yeah.
I was going to say this again. The music was really trying to sell the possibility, but they really could have done that if they wanted to do it. I mean, it felt like they were pushing toward it, but
whatever the publicity was for Star Trek at this time, they should have definitely leaked that Patrick Stewart was thinking about leaving the show. And then once Best of Both Worlds Part 2 aired, they should have leaked, well, we got him for a partial season. Then it would have felt like
this is
him for at least a partial season.
Yeah.
It would have felt better. This episode was written and story by Casey Arnold Ince. And this is her only credit on IMDb other than a assistant coordinator on another show. But it was co-written. The story was by her, but then she also wrote it with Jerry Taylor, who we talked about before because she wrote Suddenly Human, where the boy Picard adopts him and he's in his quarters. She writes that personal stuff. She's one of the creators of Voyager, executive producer of Voyager down the line. And she's really good at doing those personal character moments. So while I felt this was clunky, this is her early in her Trek career. And she does a lot more Next Gen and Voyager.
I mean, I don't know how much the executive producer actually affects the story.
No, she wrote this teleplay by credit.
Well, I'm talking about Voyager, I guess.
Oh, she was a co-creator of the series.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, she had a lot of influence over. And I think I mentioned last time we talked about it that she wrote a novel called Mosaic, which is Janeway's backstory. And it's one of the not quite canon, but as close to canon as a novel gets, because it was written by the co-creator of the show.
Nice.
It was directed by Corey Allen. He directed Encounter at Farpoint and Home Soil, which wasn't very memorable. And then he'll direct 2 more episodes, including Will Wheaton's final episode of the series. So he comes back when Will Wheaton finally comes back the last time. Journey's End. Yeah, Will Wheaton's, this episode's called Final Mission, and then he's got 4 more, but the 4th of the 4 is called Journey's End. It's very... We get and I remember that one. We get another ending for Wesley, as much as this is an ending for Wesley. So that's kind of cool.
I only have 2 other notes, and they're kind of the same, and I kind of already touched on them. But I just wrote down shuttlecraft versus holodeck episodes. They're always dangerous, which I kind of alluded to earlier. I still like shuttlecraft episodes more. But the one thing I did like about, and I mentioned earlier, how janky the shuttle was. It reminded me of many movies, but I don't know if you guys saw First Man or even The Right Stuff, kind of was the same thing of like, space travel is dangerous. Space travel is, the Enterprise, they're in these giant, obviously it's a giant starship and it feels relatively safe, but there's still plenty of other people like Mud and like Durgo flying around in metal buckets that are this close to just blowing up. So I kind of like that aspect. I mean, we know they get in danger every week, but it seems like their danger is beyond just flying around space.
That's something I hadn't thought about before. That's just the idea of people. I mean, it would be the equivalent of how many people drive cars now, probably at some point.
Mm-hmm.
People just out in civilian or passenger class spacecraft. And how many times have you been in a car and it broken down or something, or had a flat tire, or you've seen other people just having to pull off on the side of the road, or but that in space with just no one for systems around, and just that's horrifying if you think about it.
It's fine when you're on Coruscant or you're the Jetsons and there's always a bunch of cars around, but once you get into space and off the planet, that's where it gets really scary. But yeah. And First Man, it's Neil Armstrong biopic, and there's one of his first missions where they actually get into space and they can hear the metal creaking, and while they're looking down and seeing Earth and all that. And that just kind of reminded me a little bit of that. So I did like that aspect, short-lived as it was in the episode, and obviously not the focus. And those were all my notes. So.
What did Geordi say at the beginning? There was something about he's looking at it, and the Durgo said something to him like, "I can show you what I did if you really want." And it implied that there was something kind of cobbled together, or there's some unorthodox way that he had something together. Would have
bypassed the Fetzer valve kind of thing. Yeah. That would have been more interesting too, but we couldn't get to it. My other episode is, I would have liked it if it was more of an Ishtar thing. And by that, I don't mean a disaster, but a comedy film set in the desert, because their headdresses look like what Hoffman and Beatty wore. It would have been, I wish it could have been more of a funny buddy movie or Final Mission rather than what it was.
How annoying was Wesley? Scale of 1 to 10.
I think I stopped at 5.
Okay.
Maybe I was doing like maybe a point per incident or something.
Yeah.
I could probably go as high as 6, maybe, but I felt like he started walking it back at the end. Again, whatever you think about the situation that led there, or the writing of the dialogue itself, it felt like it was well delivered, and it prevented that from taking me out of it, I guess. So.
Yeah, I give him a 3. I felt the same way. I thought at first, I'm like, oh, geez, this is going to be 50 minutes of this. But I thought he leveled it out. Wasn't as annoying, so I gave him a 3.
I actually am splitting the difference and going 4, which is the average. So mine's the only number that accounts, I guess. No, I'm kidding. But, no, because he was so freaking annoying at the beginning with Durgo and on the bridge. But I hesitate to rank him too high because it is his final episode, and the emotional stuff was, I mean, he hung with Sir Patrick Stewart and did fine. Like, it didn't feel like he was out of his element. So I got to give Will Wheaton credit even for pulling back a character I found annoying in this episode.
Yep.
4 is his highest score of this season of the 7 episodes, but it's not his highest score of each of the first 3 seasons had a higher score than that. So not his highest score ever. Who was your annoyance?
Joel Savage gave him the highest one, but it's good to know.
No, it wasn't Joel Savage. I think every time we bring it up, you say Joel Savage. The episode he was here was his highest, but it wasn't.
Oh,
that doesn't make any sense to me.
He gave him a 10, and we probably gave him a 1. So it was probably.
I don't record our individual scores, but I will say the week he was here was a 5.25, which was the highest second highest for season 2.
Okay,
season 1, because he got a 6 in another episode where Joel was not here.
Okay, I know I gave him. Okay,
and he got a 5.7 for an episode season 2 when Joel was not here.
Oh, okay.
So twice he went higher than when Joel was here.
All right, good.
Who was your annoyance?
Durgo.
Not even just. It's not even a
I already had it filled out for all 3 of us.
Do not rest in peace.
That's just insane. I mean, it was just so. I mean, I think that Stephen was onto something. It felt like they needed something to vindicate the reason for how much of a hindrance he was. It was just it added the feeling of contrivance to the episode.
But getting rid of him would have allowed better scenes that made it a better episode. So that's where it's really annoying. I mean, the second place contender, I think, is that stupid ship leaking radiation. But
yeah, I
go
agree.
with Durgo.
Garbage cow. Quark. He got us again.
Crush of Trek, and you can say Durgo, but I would not if I were you.
No, and I looked at Ensign Allenby, but I'm sticking with Asharia. Is that
Ashar? Yeah.
Ashar. Yeah.
The Flask.
The what?
Do you want the Flask?
Actually, well, no, that's right. I have to think about it for.
Well, you're carryover right now, Keith, and almost impossible to beat. That's why I ditched her right away. And the first episode back is Kalar.
Yeah.
I ditched her for Agua last week because I was like, if I don't ditch her now, Kalar is going to stay there all season. I am going to go with Allenby.
All right. Yeah.
Why not? I liked her more in the next episode when she actually got to do something. But I still don't like her.
Yeah.
She's fine. And ranking the episode, start at the top. No, I'm kidding.
How many? What is this, like episode?
This
11?
is the 9th.
Ninth. Oh, okay. All right. Well,
so start at towards the bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, I guarantee it's not going to be the first 5 of these 8 that are already there.
That's what I figured.
Well, after that, Remember Me. Did you not follow the title of the episode and remember it?
That was crap.
Was that the future thing?
But that's when everybody's disappearing on Dr. Crusher.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I had to look it up too. I didn't remember.
All right. So we're already in
the zone.
Yeah. Oof.
In my head, I'm coining the term Drake for this episode because we're starting at the bottom. Now we're here.
This wasn't. Remember Me's not the last place. I didn't start at the very bottom.
Oh, it's not? Huh.
No.
What's last place? I know there's some. There's a little bit of like, well, I like this one more, and you guys like this one kind of thing here too. So, but
last place right now is Suddenly Human. That's the young human boy being raised by aliens.
Wow.
That lives in Picard's quarters.
All right.
I think it was better than that.
There wasn't really much screaming in it, so it's already a bonus.
I didn't really care for that episode though. Yeah. So
what's next up? I guess
next up is Legacy, and I would say I think this is better than that one too. Again, I didn't really care for that episode.
Yeah, that's the one I did like more.
And then Remember Me.
Okay. Yeah,
so I started us 3 from the bottom.
I would rate Legacy above this, but
I would rank Legacy below this, but I would put this below Remember Me.
This is good though, because we can make Keith decide.
We can make Keith once again.
I just
as much as Remember Me had issues, I really love Dr. Crusher. And this episode had a lot of things that annoyed me, so I'm gonna say.
Yeah, because I like Legacy more than you guys, obviously, and
you did.
I like that more than Remember Me, so that's where I am.
So, Keith,
I'm going to say that there were too many out of character moments in this. I mean, I've been thinking, like during this entire discussion, that there were some good pieces, and this is that thing that I mentioned maybe a few weeks ago or a few episodes back. The idea of those when you write those sketches where it's like, I want to do this thing. I want to drop these things in here, and let's just throw a construct here just so we can get to this. And
I'm not going to fight you.
Yeah, no, there are too many seams showing. So
okay,
I would say below Legacy at least.
Okay. I'm just focusing on like the best parts and trying to put it even higher than that. So, but would you put it above Suddenly Human?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Thinking back, I mean, I can remember more of the good parts of Suddenly Human because of just the twist. Right. They had some good moral. They had some good moral quandaries happening there, or not even moral, really, just even procedural quandaries.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got a ranking. So next week, The Loss, and I'm going to read the IMDb description, but I got beef with it. As an unknown force drags the Enterprise, Deanna Troi struggles with the loss of her powers. She's not a superhero. They're not powers.
Yep,
They're
if they are.
natural abilities or senses.
Like Lex Luthor zapped her, and she's like,
She's not Superman. I don't know why they're called powers in that description. That
she got
sucks.
she got the purple kryptonite.
In fact, I am going to go ahead and put an edit on IMDb and demand that word be changed. We'll see if they accept it or not. So
sight and hearing and taste and smell are all powers too. I guess by that logic, right?
No.
I guess we need to save it for next time. There's just a lot of semantics going on here. That
semantics.
Okay, so until then, live long.
Remember, guys, I'm proud of you.
And keep your senses about you. Well, that's next week. Sorry.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?